know. We'd appreciate that. As long as it isn't me, I'm okay. There's our buddy in Texas. Down in Dallas, we have Big Bad Ken. There he is. John Bollerman, Neil Jones, Kirk Seltzer with a splash of lime. There you are. How are you guys? Thanks for coming on in. Rachmaninoff, good to see you. Uncle Dale and his Power Stash are here, everyone. Make sure you rub the Power Stash for good luck. Nicola and Ghost66, good to see you. And we scroll on down. Kat, how are you from Paranormal Heart? Nice to see you. Cosmic Fleur, otherwise Flower, French Fleur. Fleur. Rolls off the tongue nicely. And you're looking gorgeous tonight, by the way. Bigfoot Rob, Randy Spurl, the Jim Christie, everyone. The Jim Christie. I am Pam. You are Pam. And, yeah, we're going to have a good show. Raz Taz, let's see, 509er, how are you? The Gorgeous Jules, the X-Quest, good to see you guys. Scott Taylor, Gorgeous Larry, Barnabas Bites, nice to see you. Middle Child, I know I'm going to miss a bunch of you guys, but we have to get the show on the road. Rich Hilke, good to see you. Knucker, Boxing Guy Brian, welcome to our channel. Thank you so much for joining us. Typical Watch, Soldier Warden, Rye, how you doing, guys? Let's rock this thing. Let's have a kick-ass show tonight. It's all because of you guys that we're going to do this. Let's rock and roll right now. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Now, normally we have a guest right off the bat. However, Olav Phillips, well, he's a little bit delayed. He's going to join us at the bottom of the hour. So I figured, you know what? I'll take some of your questions if you're in the chat room or on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio about anything you want to talk about for the next 30 minutes. I don't usually take calls on this show. Why? Well, let's just say I don't like phone calls. I don't. Add to the fact that I don't have a good enough quality phone system in the studio. It just doesn't work. Doesn't work for me. No, we're not doing Magic 8 Ball. But we do have a lot of really good stories coming up and a lot of things that we do need to talk about. One of the things that we need to talk about, as we're going to talk with Olav tonight, is about UFOs. We got a lot of really cool things happening coming up here in the next month and a half, 2 months. Yes, because in June, we hit that 180-day mark. Now, show of hands out there, whether you're in our terrestrial affiliates or whether you're listening to us digitally on YouTube or wherever you may be, do you know what the 180 days is? This is important. Because for years, people, years, decades, half a millennia and more, not half a millennia, half a century. I wish it was half a millennia. All right? This is what has been going on. Everything to do with UFOs has been covered up. Let's face it, it has been covered up. Shag Harbor in Canada was covered up. Roswell was covered up. Phoenix Lights was covered up. We got a lot of cover-ups going on. There's more cover-ups going on than me wearing makeup. And I don't even wear makeup. That's a lot of cover-ups. But I got to tell you, these cover-ups that have been going on, we have seen over time, we've seen UFO researchers be belittled, berated. We've seen people who've had amazing experiences lose jobs, get segregated by family members, maybe their friends, their coworkers. We've seen a lot of kickback over a lot of time here from people, ordinary people like you, like me, and many others listening to this show who have literally lost a lot of people because we believe in the woo. We believe in UFOs. We believe we've been taken by aliens or seen these strange creatures that are going on. You know, here's the big thing that we need to remember. Shows like ours are out there for people to have entertainment. They're there to have some fact. We try and bring on quality people, from scientists to the experiencer. But for the government side of things, for years we have been told this stuff doesn't exist. It's swamp gas. It's a hot weather balloon, hot air balloon, like Roswell. Okay? We have seen everything. How many of you out there, and I'm curious, and I'm reading the chat room right now, how many of you out there have seen a UFO and you go and tell your friend and they're like, no, you didn't. Nah, you just saw an airplane, or you saw a shooting star, or you saw Venus. You saw the SpaceX satellites. It's happened. It's happened to a lot of us where we have been belittled, and yet in 180 days, which ends on June 25th, we are actually going to have the information. At least we hope. We hope. And you know, it's funny because everybody from Sammy Hagar to John Lennon to movie stars to television stars, everybody's wanting to hop on the bandwagon. We've seen things. Yet there's that skeptical crowd out there that really wants to say, no, you didn't. You didn't see anything because I don't believe you. I've never seen anything. Example, Steph wants to know, when was the last time you saw Carl? Well, the alien Carl, how would you feel broadcasting a radio show and all of a sudden you look out your window because you see something move and there's an alien standing there, like 7 feet away? Right? These are the questions that we need answers to. And what we're going to talk about with Olav when he gets here at the bottom of the hour is we're going to talk about the meaning of the 180 days. And I want to tell all of you, I'm going to give you a little forewarning here. Over the next couple of months, we're going to be talking a lot about the 180 days. A lot about the 180 days. And we have to. We have to, because you got to realize, and for the people out there listening who do not believe in this topic or are skeptical of this topic, the topic of UFOs and potentially aliens is literally the number one topic outside of Jesus Christ himself coming down from the heavens that will affect every single person on this planet. There are 7.8 billion people on this planet, and every single person is going to be affected if it ever comes out that UFOs and aliens are real. Think about that for a second. This is a big topic. We see, as you've heard me talk on other shows, we've seen how people have acted during COVID. We've seen how nuts some people have gone. Look, I'm not a disease denier at all. Not at all. I have family working on the front lines. I have friends working on the front lines helping people. I know people personally who have got it. My own business partner has got COVID right now. It's not fun. All right? Now, thankfully, I don't know anybody who's passed away from it. But if you look at some of the stupidity we have had with it, the hoarding of toilet paper, the hoarding of hand sanitizer, people trying to charge $20 to $100 a bottle on Amazon at one time before Amazon got smart and shut that down. eBay as well. We didn't treat each other very good during this pandemic. How do we expect 7.8 billion people to treat each other if aliens are real? And the other question that I have been pressing on a lot of people, but nobody seems to be really taking it seriously right now. And if you read my blog last week, it really made a statement. Why now? All of you listening right now, if you have an interest in UFOs, being part of the 7.8 billion people on this planet, why now? Why now is this all of a sudden a topic? Why now is all of a sudden, after 70 years of cover-ups, is the United States government throwing money, taxpayers' money, into UFO research? If this subject has been going on for years, decades, that these tic-tac type craft have been playing around with the United States military in their training zones, like we've seen with the Navy, why now are they bringing it out? Because I don't believe for a second, people, that Chris Mellon or Lou Elizondo or Harry Reid, the former Nevada senator, have had anything to do with why now. There seems to be a nefarious cover-up of the why now movement. Okay, we need a why now movement. Hashtag why now on Twitter. Hashtag why now on Instagram and Facebook. Because we as the public, those of us who've experienced things, I think of John, who was on the show about a month ago, talking about at 15 years old, how he was taken by aliens. Came back. When last thing he remembers, he was in his bed, wakes up on his couch, scratches on his back, his shorts are on backwards. Why now? Why now? What is the government covering up that we need to know about UFOs now? That is a major question that needs to be focused on over the next little bit. And the unfortunate part about it is the people who need to be talking about it, people in my position as a radio host, people in the researcher's position, those A-listers, if we think about them like Richard Dolan or Linda Moulton Howe or Grant Cameron, even Brandon Fugel, who we're going to be booking in May from the Skinwalker Ranch. We need to know why now. Why is this all of a sudden important? Why all of a sudden is this topic something that we need to figure out right now? Look, if all of these UFO programs have been going on secretively from Project Blue Book all the way up to ATIP for the last number of decades, we need to know why now. They already should have the information, shouldn't they? Shouldn't Luis Elizondo be able to answer that question? I'm sure he would love to, but probably can't due to his non-disclosure agreements. But we as a society, as people who have interests in these topics, maybe we've experienced ET abduction, maybe we've seen aliens, maybe we've seen a fleet of UFOs or black triangles. We have the right as citizens of this planet to know why now. And what it does is it actually opens up a lot of questions, people. It really does. Because if you look at the grand scheme of things of the 180 days, literally what's going to happen is we're going to get tidbits. We're probably going to get a couple more videos like the one Jeremy Corbell released the other day with George Knapp. And that was a great video. Congratulations to them. We're probably going to get more of that. We're probably going to get more still photos. But we're, in the end, not going to get the information that we need to know. We're not going to find out what happened at Roswell. We're not going to find out what happened in Phoenix during the Phoenix Lights on March 13th, 1997. We're not going to find out what happened to Stefan Michalek up here in Canada with the Falcon Lake incident. We're not going to know if the Navy divers who allegedly dove down into Shag Harbor to check out the crash UFO actually saw aliens fixing the craft underwater. We're not going to know that. We're not going to know any of that. We should. We need to. But we're not going to know any of that. Why? Because in the end, no matter the information that comes out on June 25th, this is what's going to happen. They're going to bury all the good stuff because they're going to hide it under national security. That is my prediction. I hope I am wrong. The Central Intelligence Agency and the Intelligence Committee are not going to give up anything that could put people in a panic. They aren't. We're hungry for an answer. We deserve an answer. But here's what I want you to think. These are some of the questions going through my mind as we lead up to this. What happened at Roswell? Did they collect alien bodies? What's hiding at Area 51? Are there aliens there? What about the video of Skinny Bob? What about J-Rod? What about other aliens from Venus, from Mars, from other solar systems? What about the crash retrievals? Is Bob Lazar a liar, or is he telling the truth? What about David Adair's rocket going into Area 51? Do we buy that? Now, other questions. What about ET contact? And as woo as this may sound, what if that deal is true? You're saying, what deal is he talking about? The deal between, allegedly, President Eisenhower and extraterrestrials that traded humans for technology. Right? What about that? What if that's true? Think about that for a second. What if that's true? Those are questions that they need to cover up. Those are questions that they definitely want to cover up. National security. Could you imagine, hypothetically, if there was an actual list of people's names who have been contacted by extraterrestrials in the hands of the U.S. government? Could you imagine? What about all those people who had ET abductions and then ended up in some sort of MyLab situation? Scary to think about, but it's true. What if? Why now? Here's another question for you. Has the U.S. government or any government on this planet been contacted by an extraterrestrial species saying, we're coming and we'll be there soon? Now, maybe a year from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now. If it's 30 years from now, 50 years from now, it's time to start prepping the younger generations who are going to be many of our ages by the time that happens. But that is a big one. That is a big one, man. And we have to pay attention to this. We do have to pay attention to the why now question. Because all we are hearing, ladies and gentlemen, is what's happening with the U.S. Navy. What's happening at U.S. Air Force installations, with the Air Force still denying it. We have a right to know what is going on, but more importantly, we have a right to know why now. Why is this all of a sudden a hot button topic? Now, Tom DeLonge and his TTSA crew, they're going to take credit for this. That they're the ones who put the pressure on the government. Okay, they did some of that. They did some good. I wouldn't give Tom credit. I would give Elizondo and Mellon credit for that. But the government plays enough games around this topic over the decades that literally, they're dictating the entire plan. And if you think differently, you're wrong. Plain and simple, you're wrong. Do I have proof on that? No, but I'm confident enough to say that you'd be wrong. We don't know how it's going to affect the economy. We don't know how it's going to affect people in religion who think that everything from the sky is demonic. We don't know how it's going to affect those who are so paranoid with life already that they're already ready to shoot first and ask questions later. We don't know any of the reactions. What we can use is COVID as a litmus test. But all of you out there, honestly, as we got about 4 minutes to go before we go to break, have to start asking the question, why now? And if you're skeptical of this topic, I highly suggest that you take it a little bit more seriously, because this is a topic that is not going away. It's a topic that's going to affect your parents if they're still alive, your grandparents if they're still alive, your children, your nieces, your nephews, your friends, your coworkers. It's even going to affect your dog and cat. How, I don't know yet, but I'm sure it's going to. It's going to affect everything on this planet. And you know what? I don't think we're prepared. And the governments don't think we are prepared, which is why I don't think they're giving us anything or going to give us anything on June 25th. It's like that old movie with Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson, where Cruise is the lawyer, says, "I want the truth," and Jack Nicholson screams back, "You can't handle the truth." That's exactly what we're seeing here. And if the UFO community had any smarts, any balls, any type of strength to gather together and to actually work together for the sake of trying to understand this entire topic, we may have an answer for why now. But unfortunately, we don't. We don't have an answer for why now. We're not going to get the truth. We're going to be disappointed on June 25th because the trickle effect is still going to happen. Why now? It's an important question. Thank you, Renee, in our chat room. 69 days until it happens. So just over 2 months. Just over 2 months. We need on YouTube, Twitter, everything. Start the Why Now hashtag. And you should be jumping on there as you're listening to this. Is that why now? This affects you. I mean, Cable Guy Matt, who autographed a bunch of coaxial cable for me. Thank you, Cable Guy Matt. Okay, he brings up a good question. Fake alien invasion? We've heard that false flag before. That's another question that needs to be asked. Is this what's coming? As stupid as that sounds, do we have to prepare for that? Do we have to prepare for more lockdowns because the aliens are coming? And when you look at this last sighting, which happened in July of 2019, where the 3 boats were out there, and we'll talk to Olav Phillips about this momentarily, but I want you guys to think about this. Talking to Science Bob, a lot of times when the Navy goes out for training, they go out as a fleet, led by their aircraft carrier. These were 3 battleships going into an area. They are being tormented for days by these AKA drones. One is hovering in a live fire area above the helicopter pad of one of the ships, and they never fired on it. Think about that. If they didn't think it was extraterrestrial, they'd have brought it down. If they thought it was human-made, they would have brought it down. But they didn't. If they thought it was from the Chinese or Russian governments, they would have brought it down. They would have brought it down because they would have known it was a threat from another adversary on this planet. They didn't bring it down because they knew they didn't want to start some stuff they couldn't finish. Olav Phillips is going to join us here on Spaced Out Radio when we come back from the break. Remember, why now? Start hashtagging it. We need to start this movement on Spaced Out Radio right here. The Mighty SOR continues right after this. You know, one point I also want to make on this is this isn't about propulsion systems. This isn't about watching an aircraft take a 90-degree angle at Mach speed. This isn't about that whatsoever. This is about people. It's about people. Right? Hi, Cesar. We got a bunch of new people in our chat room tonight. I'll bring in Olav here in a second. Caesar, welcome to our chat room. Trinitrotolueno, welcome to our chat room. Thank you so much. SJ, good to see you. Mary Bone, she's a vegetarian, everyone. Mary Bone. The other side. Hey, thank you, FAP, TH, and Rye for the great super chats. Really do appreciate that. Science Bob, how you doing? The gorgeous, talented, and ever smart, but just a cook, Nicole Sackage. There she is. You're looking beautiful tonight, my friend. Solar Warden, good to see you. The gorgeous Princess Denali. She's one of our wrenches. And scrolling up here. Brother Eugene, how are you? The other side. How are you? Chris Moe, good to see you. Tewaz, nice to have you back. And sorry, guys, I'm just trying to catch up. The lovely and talented Helena Mondak, thanks for coming on in. Peter Steins, welcome back. Boom to you, Bama. How are you, man? Nucker, good to see you. H.L. Westlake, it's been a while, but we're glad you're here. Snakes on a UFO Snakester, welcome to the show. Cryptic Vin, welcome back, dude. Thanks for joining us. Thurston Howell III, how's Lovey? Please give us an update. Yes. Wizard Gren, good to see you. Bombshell Bomber. George Hernandez, how are you, man? Good to see you. Hey, Major Lee, thanks for coming on in, buddy. Greg Moyes, good to see you. I know I'm missing people, and I apologize if I haven't called your name as of yet. But it's just one of those weird nights that this is just the way it's going tonight. We'll make sure it happens. Hey, Duke, Kevin DeFranco, welcome to the show, man. And J1, much love to you. Mr. Apnea, thanks for joining us. 416, rooted in gorgeous sacredness. The lovely and talented Jenster. Yes, Jenster is her legal first name. All right. Yod Neal, welcome to the show. All the way from Maui. Thank you. Abe Troff, how are you? Welcome to the show. Eric Austin, thank you for joining us. Kevin DeFranco, welcome. I think I already said welcome to you, but you get another one. All right, let's get Olav in here. Jeff Elder, C. McGee, Ronnie.
Hold on.
All right, Olav Phillips. Everybody in our Spreaker chat room. Hey there, GJRB. Gary, how are you, man? Just saying hello to people in the chat rooms. How's OlavPhillips.com tonight? Oh, the X-Quest. Welcome, man. Ian Herndon, welcome to the show. Let's see here.
I'm on a straight shot for the next 52 miles.
All right, beautiful. 52 miles. You went on a date 52 miles away?
I did.
Oh my gosh. You're in California. You're in California. There's like Tinder all over the place, man. Gorgeous Renee, how are you? Davey, nice to see you. Randy Spurl. Oh yeah. All right.
Vicky.
I know. Keon Henderson, how are you? Jeremy Jones, good to see you.
Sometimes you got to drive for quality.
True. Very true. All right. If you're new to our chat, or new to our YouTube channel, by the way, we're not a podcast. We are a live radio show. So right now we're actually on commercial, and so that's why you kind of hear us kind of screwing around here at this time and wondering, well, hey, I'm tuning into a show. Why don't I have a show going on? It's because, well, we got to do it for radio. So I do apologize, but we'd love to earn your listening ears. We'd love for you to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you know when we're coming on live. And thanks, Rye, Fapster, and TH for the super chats. Here we go, everyone. Oh, no, we got a few seconds here. Oh, no, here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We got Olav Phillips with us tonight. He's from Paranoia Magazine. Go to paranoiamagazine.com. He's our guy when it comes to the secret space program, when it comes to UFOs and the 180 days. This is the guy we want to talk to. Olav, welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming on in. Literally, so our audience knows, you were on a hot and heavy date, like 60 miles away from where you live, and you dumped her to come on this show.
I wouldn't put it quite like that.
Oh, I would. I totally would. Because I'm going to say thank you for that. That's true friendship right there.
She had to go. It was fine.
Well, you know what? We thank you for coming on in. And Olav, one of the big things that I was saying the last half hour, as I know you were just getting ready to leave your date and everything, to talk right. UFOs, because that's more important. I have
ready to mingle.
I have a major question in my head that I was just discussing with our audience here. It is why now? Why now? Why, after decades of putting people down, calling people crazy, stalking people, shutting up people, are we now, Olav, seeing the government saying, we got to figure out what these UFOs are? That doesn't make sense to me.
It shouldn't, because it's probably not true. I think that the big thing we have to ask ourselves is not so much, disclosure. I think what we have to ask ourselves is, what are they really doing? Right? That just because they say that these, what we call UAPs now, just because they say, I can't identify that, and yeah, that's real, but we don't know what it is, that doesn't mean they're telling the truth. There's a vast assumption going on right now that these videos that were just released are of extraterrestrial vehicles, and I don't necessarily think that that's true.
Well, they could be from anywhere, and I think that's one of the big things that is being debated. Whether it's ultra-terrestrial, interterrestrial, extraterrestrial, interdimensional, time travelers from the future.
I think it's a good thing to debate, because one of the interesting things I noticed when I watched that the pyramid UFO video is that when you're watching it, it's strobing, and the strobe, right, appears to come from the aircraft itself, and that is a standard thing that you put on aircraft, is a strobe. So, if it's an alien vehicle, it's like, why would they put a strobe on it? You see what I mean? Just because, I know that the UFO community, of which I'm a member, I know we all want it to be an alien ship, and for this to be disclosure, and the government saying, oh no, UFOs are real, but they're not. number one, they changed the name. They're no longer UFOs or UAPs, and I don't know. I'm not convinced that what they're doing is genuine from the point of view of the UFO community.
It's actually kind of impressive because I'm looking at Twitter here, and there's a bunch of people on there hashtagging why now. And I think it's great. I really do think it's great. Thank you for everybody doing that. But it is a question that needs to be answered, because I don't believe for a second, Olav. And look, I have been harshly critical over the last 3 years on the TTSA. But the one thing that I will say that stood out for me is I think Lou Elizondo, for as much as he can be, is a pretty upstanding guy. I think Chris Mellon is working very, very diligently to try and get this message out and get the politicians and the elected officials to be taking this subject a lot more seriously than what they are. However...
Yeah, but it's...
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Well, at the same time, the hierarchy in the TTSA is a spook factory. Let's be honest. They're all guys that came out of SRI, Stanford Research Institute, well known for DARPA advanced projects, including Stargate. The whole remote viewing thing was SRI. These guys, they're heavily connected spooks, and it makes you. I'm sure that they're releasing, information that they've been given, that they've been told is X, Y, Z, but that doesn't mean that's what it is.
Okay, but it makes me ask a lot of questions, Olav. A lot of questions. Mm-hmm. Okay. Example, what happened at Roswell? What happened at Kecksburg? What happened with the Phoenix Lights? What happened with the series of tests at Montauk before they shut that down? What happened at Area 51? What about Skinny Bob? What about J-Rod? What about the guy from Venus? His name is Valiant Thor. What about all the people who claim to see their own alien greys? They all have their own personal Carl.
Right.
These are questions that need to be asked.
Yeah, but you can ask them until you're blue in the face. They're not answering them. And I think that if you go back to the Air Force, even now, with these stunning revelations by the Navy, by the way, not the Air Force, these stunning revelations, if you go back and ask the Air Force, they're going to tell you that Roswell was Project Mogul. If you ask them about the Navy, about the Philadelphia experiment, the Montauk experiments, they're going to say it never happened. We never did that to the Eldridge, right? They're not answering any of those questions. And, if you go to the Air Force and say, well, does J-Rod really like, strawberry milkshakes? They're going to say, who's J-Rod? And I talked to Bill Uhouse. Bill Uhouse was the guy that used to talk about J-Rod. And he was a very, very nice man. And, when you talk to him, he was very committed to what he was saying. And, he was telling his truth. But I don't think this whole UAP thing has anything to do with extraterrestrials. I really don't. It's like, why would I put an aircraft strobe on an extraterrestrial vehicle? There's a long history of that, right, Dave? That we've got these vehicles that, that demonstrate certain things, but they have these oddities about them that are very much not alien when you dig down deep into the phenomenon.
Well, that's where I think you and I will agree to disagree on a little bit, because I think you believe that they are more something else rather than little beings and mantids and greys and humanoids coming from space. I know what
I think some of them are.
Okay. But
I think some of them are, but I don't think all of them are. And I think that's, I subscribe to the Hynek-Bali model, right, which is 90% of them can be explained in some way, shape, or form. And I'm not talking swamp gas. I'm talking advanced, compartmentalized programs that we don't know anything about. But there is a good 10 or 15% of them, of which I've seen myself, that defy logic. Like, they do things that you just cannot comprehend, rationalize, that I'm sure are interdimensional ultra terrestrial or alien or whatever. I mean, I've seen those too, but what's on that video is not. I think that's human, and I think they're covering something up.
What do you think they're covering up?
Well, I always like to go back to the A-12, right? The A-12 was the predecessor to the SR-71, developed at Groom Lake, by Lockheed under contract to the CIA. And back in the 50s, when they were developing the A-12, the A-12 was bigger than the SR-71, and it was silver. And as it would streak across the sky, you'd see this highly reflective object barreling across the sky. And the first thing that everybody thought, especially in the 50s, the contact year, oh my God, that's a Venusian scout ship or whatever. And the CIA fostered that. They actually, through the name escapes me right now, but the program that they had where they had journalists that would publish things, they had sympathetic journalists. And they would push this idea that, yeah, that's a UFO. And then the KGB got wise to it and started sending KGB agents to infiltrate these UFO groups like NICAP and others when they would go out and do these sky watches thinking, okay, we're going to get to see this like mysterious aircraft. And when they did that, the FBI and the CIA would also infiltrate these organizations and watch the KGB guys. So, they used the explanation of a UFO more than once.
Okay. I understand with where you're going with that. But on a human level, right, there are very few topics that we will deal with on this planet, Olav, that affect every single person on this planet. And like I said in my monogram in the first half hour of the show, the one thing that I will say about this is we haven't, as a society of the world, handled COVID very well. We become selfish. No. We became scared. We became panicked. Look at the toilet paper situation. Look at the meats, the milks, the cheeses, the butters, everything.
Ammunition, guns, pick your bread, butter, whatever. Pick whatever you want. It's all shortage. Sure.
All right. We look at companies shutting down for no reason, using COVID as an example to get out of their business. That has happened on more than one occasion. People have been shunning people, going after people, turning people in because they're not wearing a mask or they're not wearing two masks, or the debate.
Well, they are wearing a mask. I mean, they do it for everything.
But you know what I'm saying, though? We're seeing all of this go on. I can't imagine how people are going to respond when we start all of a sudden admitting that we got aliens or we have some sort of extraterrestrial or ultra-terrestrial contact and we're that scared.
Well, there was a guy back in the 90s. I'm driving, the truth be told. So his name escapes, I'm multitasking. His name escapes me at the moment. But he was approached. So originally a guy by the name of Bobby Ray Inman, he was an admiral in the U.S. Navy, former head of the CIA. He had approached a researcher named Timothy Good, who's, you go back in the 90s, was very, very famous. And he had wanted Timothy Good to help him to come up with a traveling road show to basically do disclosure. And it was called Cosmic Journey. And Timothy Good couldn't do it because I guess he was too busy writing books. And so he said, well, we need to use this other guy. And so he approached the other guy, whose name escapes me. But he recorded all the conversations with Inman. And when he recorded them, he's got Inman, well, he's deceased now, but he had Inman on tape going, oh, yeah, we've got wreckage from Roswell. We got bodies. They had, they were working with Barnum and Bailey, I think it was Barnum and Bailey, to do the sideshow kind of thing. They had a bunch of traveling, whole traveling setup. And he had videos of the kind of promo reel for it, and he kind of went public with it. And then, they shut it down and they set him up with this thing called Guardian, and that's a whole show by itself. But I think it demonstrated that they really do have this stuff. And at least in the 90s, there was a window where they were actually legitimately willing to disclose it. But, that went away. The whole cosmic journey thing, failed. So,
do you think that the government truly knows what is going on? Or do you think that they are playing dumb when you see Marco Rubio or John Ratcliffe or any type of politician, even Luis Elizondo or Chris Mellon, playing dumb of the public, that when they say we don't know what these craft are or we don't know where they're coming from, do you think that's a bunch of bunk? Are we being played? Or do you think that they may not know, but there are groups in these alphabet agencies that are hidden that do know what the hell is going on?
I think that when these guys like a Marco Rubio or Radcliffe or Zahak or whatever, I think when these guys come forward and say, "No, we have no idea," I think they're telling you the truth. I think they're telling you their truth. I don't think it's the truth, right? That you're relying on information that was given to them. And yeah, I think that there are groups within alphabet agencies, more likely small groups within alphabet agencies, but huge groups within defense contractors who know what this stuff is, whether it's aliens or it's us or it's the Russians or the Chinese, the Cubans, the Hondurans, the Costa Ricans, the Antarcticans, or whoever they are, right? I think they know exactly what this stuff is. I mean, we have an entire defense satellite network, right? These DSP satellites are designed to detect inbound objects. So I find it highly unlikely that anything can get into our airspace without us knowing it. And I'm sure at this stage of the game, they've got a very good idea of what it actually is.
So who knows? If you were to make a list of the people who know the true story. Now, we're not accusing people like Luis Elizondo or Chris Mellon or anybody of those types of being liars. They just may not know the whole... I think they're telling the truth. They're not just telling all of the truth.
I think they're telling the truth as it's been told to them. And that's a very important thing in the intelligence world that you have to understand, is that I think that Luis Elizondo seems like a stand-up guy, him and Christopher Mellon. I think that they are telling you exactly what they've been told. That doesn't mean it's true, but that's what they've been told. If I were to put my finger on it, I'd say they're elements of the NSA, the NRO, the National Geospatial Agency, the NGA, the Air Force, the Navy, who know about this stuff. Elements inside the DoD who are very aware. But, these are compartmentalized organizations, and, they're not going to release it.
What's the harm in releasing it?
Well, I mean, we don't know. I think that's the big harm, is that we don't know. That, if we release it and say, yeah, UFOs are real, look, here's a little gray alien walking around in a park, we honestly don't know what that'll do. The closest we have is the Brookings study from the 50s that said that there would be a fairly catastrophic situation would take place, because people would, they would lose their faith in religion, that they would, there would be some massive societal impact. And so based on that, supposedly, they decided not to deal with it.
Okay. So there has to be someone who does know, though. I don't think it's the President of the United States.
No, I don't think so at all. We saw that with Clinton. Right, Clinton dispatched, was it Podesta to go figure, or no, Leon Panetta to go figure out what the deal was, right? And they came back and they're like, well, you don't have authorization to find out. And he's like, well, I'm the head of the CIA, and they said, well, no. And and Clinton himself was like, I want to know, and they're like, yeah, you're not cleared for it, because just because you're the president, right? Just because you're a congressman, doesn't mean that you have super high level, security access, right? These decisions on how classifications are issued are not at the behest of the president or the joint, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, maybe, but not, they're not, any political appointee or elected official is not in control of how the classification happens. So, yeah, I don't think any of those guys know.
Okay. Let's go to the video that was just released of the pyramid by Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp.
Right.
And I want to ask you about that video.
Sure.
Do you think it's an airplane? Do you think it's a TR-3B? Or do you think it's of extraterrestrial or ultra-terrestrial descent like the Pentagon has come out to state?
It's not a TR-3B, that I'm certain of. But I think it's some sort of an exotic drone. I don't think it's aliens. I think it's a drone.
What gives you that?
Well, number one, it's got a strobe, right? It's got an aircraft strobe on it. And I don't know why an alien would put an aircraft strobe on an alien spaceship. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Number two, it hung around and waited to be photographed. If I'm an alien, right, and I don't really want to be seen, I'm going to leave. One thing that I've noticed about vehicles that I think are actually alien in origin is that they don't behave like a human flies them. They behave like their own kind of thing. And a lot of them are, for lack of a better term, shy. They don't really want to be seen. It's kind of like a passive, like, oh, I saw it, versus, hey, I'm over here. I don't think any of them that I've ever seen that are alien are like, hey, I'm over here. It's more like, yeah, I'm passing by, you happen to see me, right? So, it hangs around long enough to be filmed, and I don't think an alien would do that.
I think they could.
Well, sure,
because if you look deep into the video, what a lot of people are missing is the fact that there are a couple of other triangles in that video.
That doesn't mean they're alien, though. That just means there's other triangles hanging around. Right?
Okay.
I don't know. The behavior didn't seem alien to me. It seemed too logical. I'll always take it back when I was in college. When I was in college, I went to UC Davis, and I had this professor. His name was Jane Goyen, excellent linguistic anthropologist. Lecturer, maybe, okay, but excellent linguistic anthropologist. So one of the things he pointed out to us is that, and he used the aliens as an example. He said that you cannot prescribe, at that time, we called it Western thought, but let's just say human thought. He said that you cannot prescribe human thought to an alien because the alien doesn't think the way you do. Their motivations, their behaviors, everything is different because they evolve differently. They have a different societal structure. You get the idea. So when I've seen things that are alien, that I think are alien, they don't act the way you think. They don't act the way you think they would. That they kind of just do what they do. If you see like a human powered aircraft, right, that it's making banks and turns because it's doing things that are kind of pre-prescribed. I also think that if it was truly alien, I don't think they'd show us. They don't need to. There's some motivation they have for doing it. That's really the question here.
Well, you know what? We're going to get into that motivation. We're going to talk more about this video in the 180 days when we come back from break, because I think it's ultimately important that we have that conversation with our audience. And I'm going to encourage our audience on Twitter and in our chat rooms as well, especially on YouTube, to ask some questions, because let's get into this. Why now? Why now? We all need to know why now. Go put it on your social media during the break here on Spaced Out Radio. #why now? Because we all need to know what the heck is going on with the 180 days. What are we not being told? As citizens of this planet, don't you think we have a right to know? Olav Phillips is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. and we're going to make things happen as we continue the UFO talk here on the Mighty SOR. So stay tuned, start asking questions, head to your social media, hashtag Why Now, and hashtag at Spaced Out Radio, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. There you go. We'll be back with more of the Mighty SOR right after this. All right, buddy, I'm just going to run to the bathroom here and take my dogs out. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay, I'll be in the car.
All right, you be in the car. Drive safe.
We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
All right, Olav, I'm back.
Okay.
I got to fix my commercials so that way it's not silent.
Still in the car.
Yeah. Got to bring back the old cart machine.
Yeah, I miss cart machines.
For sure. For sure.
I was a DJ for my high school radio station. We had cart machines.
That's what I started on.
Turntables.
That's what I started on. Trying to edit actual tape, it was hell. It was literally hell.
Oh, yeah.
Then you have to get that binding tape that was real thin. Oh, it was terrible. Oh, hey, Clam. How are you?
No, I didn't dump her to go. That's all right.
I know, but it makes for a good story. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Sandra.
She always likes it 3 times. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra.
3 is an important number.
Exactly. And, hey, Kevin, how are you? We got about 1 minute here, Olav, before we launch back for hour 2. Thank you to Rye. Thank you to Fapster. Thank you to TH for those amazing super chats that you have given us. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Thank you to everyone who is new tuning on in for the first time. And once again, this is a live radio show. It is not a podcast where we do have to take breaks to line up with our radio station programming. So we do appreciate your understanding on that. And do us a favor, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit that bell so you know when we're coming on. Nate Foote, how you doing? How's the new house, buddy? And hope you're doing well after the move, my man. Good to see you back in the chat room. John Poe, good to have you here. Bigfoot Rob, thanks for coming on in. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you. We're going to go with Olav Phillips here in 3 seconds.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for tuning us in. We really do appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. We want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Typothete. Typothete is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Why now? Why do we need to know about UFOs now? What is the importance? This is what we are talking about as we are 69 days away from June 25th, the big day when the United States government is allegedly going to announce what they know about unidentified aerial phenomena. From Paranoia Magazine, we have Olav Phillips here. Olav, welcome back.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, right before the break, we were talking about the secrets and the core of secrets that are out there regarding this incredible subject that is going to affect everybody on this planet. Whether they believe in UFOs or whether they don't, it really doesn't matter. It's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. What they give us is what we're going to get. Now, I'll be honest with you. I think, Olav, we are going to get a few more videos. I think we are going to get a few more still photos, maybe another pilot or two coming forward, stating that I have interacted with these. Okay? But I don't think we're going to get anything major. We're not going to get major answers. We're not going to get what happened at Roswell. We're not going to get what's happening at Area 51. We're not going to find out if Bob Lazar was telling the truth or that it was a 2-mile-long craft hovering over Phoenix in 1997. We're not getting that.
Right. No, we're not. You know, I want to remind everybody about Roswell case closed. Right. The
Oh, we lost you there for a second. We lost you there for a second, Olav.
Sorry. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay. So I think this is going to go back to Roswell case closed. And the Air Force is like, we're going to tell you everything we know. It's going to be great. Everybody's going to be happy. Everybody's, disclosure. Yeah, it was dummies. And they published a big fat book on it, gave it to everybody, and we still knew nothing. So, I agree with you. I think you're going to see a few more stills, a few more videos, maybe some more pilots. But it is a very good question of why now? And I think that's what we really need to dig into. It's not, I'm less interested in the videos and I'm less interested, in the pilots and all the other stuff because that can be concocted, right? I mean, if anybody knows, a long-haul airline pilot, right, or maybe there's one listening, they'll tell you that when they're flying cross-country or they're flying, intercontinentally, that they see stuff all the time up there. They just don't report it. So, those are very interesting to me because they're not controlled. But what we're going to get out of this report, anything that comes out of the TTSA or anybody, or Jeremy Corbell or George Knapp or anybody, what we're going to get is controlled, and it's going to have, it's going to have a story attached to it, right? That's palatable for us, that we can deal with. That's going to make a bunch of people turn off the TV and go, yeah, I thought so. I think why they're doing it now is a far better question than what they're doing.
Well, I was talking to Bob McGuire about this latest sighting that came out that Corbell said happened in July of 2019 in the ocean around San Diego, California. And one of the things that we were discussing, and Bob was thinking about this out loud with me. Now, normally when the Navy ships go out for training, they don't go in a 3-ship system. Now, I've never been in the Navy. I don't know. Maybe they do this. But normally when they go out for training, they go out with the carrier group. Okay.
Right.
All right. And the fact that these 3 went out there and they had action from these tic-tac type of craft over a few-day period, including...
Not only that, by the way, but they got confirmation that there was a Carnival cruise liner that they called up and said, hey, can you see it too? And they were like, yeah, we see it as well. So, that puts even more into it. That not only was it a 3-ship combo, which is weird, but they actually went to the Carnival cruise liner that was adjacent to them and said, hey, are you seeing this too? They broke outside of the cone of secrecy, right?
Right. But here's what I'm thinking, and Bob and I were discussing this. What if they were trying to communicate with these craft? What if they knew that they were actually going to be there, Olav, and they were trying to communicate? Because I'll tell you, when you're in a live fire zone like I believe they were, you have one hovering over top of your helicopter pad on a ship for a couple of minutes. You are not going to not fire on that if you don't think, or if you think it's human. If you think it's Chinese or you think it's Russian or any other adversary out there, are you not going to fire on it?
No, you're not, because they're governed by the rules of engagement. The pushback that I would give you to that hypothesis, it's a very good one. But my pushback to it is that, well, if they sent them out there to communicate with it, right, then why was the crew ill-informed? Why are they calling up the aircraft recognition people to run out there and go look at this thing and try to figure out what it is? They would have gone out there knowing, at least some of them knowing what they're doing. And they would have had a special crew that had been read in. They would have cleared the CIC, the command and control area, and put people in there specifically read into the program so nobody's going to panic, right? They're not going to call a Carnival cruise liner and say, well, what is that? So the behavior is more of one of shock. And I don't think they would fire on it. I don't think they'd fire on it unless they were fired upon. And if they wanted to fire on it, they would have to go to SINCPAC to get authorization to fire on it. We don't just shoot at stuff. They've got to go back to the command and control for the Pacific Fleet and get authorization, unless they're fired on. It's my understanding if they're fired on, they can fire back, but they weren't fired on, so they'd have to get clearance.
Okay, you would know better than I would, and I know we got a couple people listening in our chat room who have spent time in the Navy. I never have, so I really don't know. I'm just assuming what I think.
I have not either, but I have had a number of friends and family members who were in the military who describe these kinds of, not with UFOs, but, rules of engagement type scenarios. So I'm pretty confident that they wouldn't just fire on it. I mean, even, it's funny, I watched a show on Apple Plus called, was it For All Mankind? And, they kind of did a whole thing with, remember back in the late 80s? It was late 80s. There was a MiG-29 that shot down a commercial airliner over the Pacific.
Yes.
Even in that scenario, that MiG-29 pilot had to call back into Air Defense Command to get authorization to fire. And that's Russian, the Soviets. So, there's very strict rules of engagement about just opening up on something. And I think it's my understanding, you have to be fired upon. And there are scenarios where even if you're fired at, this is a UN thing, but even if you're shot at, you can't shoot back. That was something that the UN used to do. So, but I don't know. It doesn't smell right that they would have sent them out there to communicate with them and not told them anything about it. That doesn't seem right to me.
Could they have been?
I think they sent them out there to test it.
Well, that was my next question that I was just going to ask you. Do you think they were sent out there to be tested?
I do. I think because this is something that the military has done over and over again. I think they sent them out there and then sent these vehicles out there to see what the pilots would pick up, the helicopter pilots or the crews on the ships. How did the sensors deal with it? What did the sensors actually see? I think when those ships pulled back into port, I think some people went on board and retrieved all the sensor data to see how the thing registered, because there's a whole thing in stealth technology, right, where, you're changing the angles that are on the vehicle, whether it's an aircraft or it's a ship or a tank, and you're trying to decrease the radar footprint. So you take like the old stealth fighter, right? I think that thing had a radar cross-section of like a matchbook or something crazy, like a Coke can. So when you shot radar at it, because radar, it's beam, right? They shot the radar at it, when the radar came back to kind of tell them what they were looking at, it looked like something that was like 100 times smaller than it actually was. And they used to fly the stealth fighters and stealth bombers over military people all the time, just to see how they react to it or what the radar would show, and they wouldn't tell them.
I understand that you're not going to let all your crew know, all right? But I'm pretty sure that if they were sent out on that mission, that the commander of the ship would know, the captain of the ship.
Don't be so sure. That's quite an assumption. I don't think they would necessarily tell anybody. Because remember, if you're testing a situation like that, right, you're testing the entire crew to see how they respond. You're also looking at how the news of it leaks and how people react to it when they hear it. It's not just if I'm some deep, dark alphabet agency and I want to test some new aircraft, right? I'm going to test it. I'm going to send some ships out there, right? And then I'm going to have this thing show up. And then I want to see what the crew does. I want to see what the sensors do. I want to see how they react. I want to see how that Carnival cruise liner reacted. I want to see how the news is leaked. I want to see how it propagates through mainstream media and social media and radio shows. I want to follow all that. You see what I mean?
Well, I want to too, and I think everybody else wants to know what's going on as well. But
that's just it.
But I'm not playing.
They're
I'm not playing
tracking it.
dumb on this, though.
No, but they're tracking. Somebody somewhere is tracking this. But way back in the day, right? There's an outfit that's actually the CIA. It's called In-Q-Tel, and In-Q-Tel is the venture funding arm of the CIA. Basically, what they are is they're venture capitalists. They invest in startups, and the money comes from the CIA, right? And if you back in the day, I don't know now, but a few years ago, if you looked at what In-Q-Tel actually invested in, one of the things that they were pouring just gobs of money into, besides data analysis, is that they were pouring money into mapping. And there were these startups that were able to map, social patterns, and they were able to map social structure. So they would produce a map, and it says, okay, Olav's in the center, and then there would be a line to Dave, and we say, well, he knows Dave, and Dave knows, Bob McGuire. Bob McGuire knows this guy, and it creates an entire map of who everybody knows, and it shows how information moves between those points. So right now, right, they have huge, computer clusters that are analyzing how that information has propagated into the mainstream and how the mainstream is reacting to it. Probably, given the amount of horsepower they have, probably down to the individual level. Because they're mining data right out of Facebook and Weenie and Twitter and Instagram and everything else. They're mining that data. They do very sophisticated data mining. For the last 4 years, we've been led to believe that people like the CIA and the NSA, that they're nincompoops, and they're really not. They're very, very good at what they do. So, I think that this was a multi-layered test. That's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Okay, so if you think that these ships went out there as testers, what was actually seen in the sky? You believe it was drones?
What you were seeing, I think they were super sophisticated, probably Lockheed-built drones. Because let us not forget what Ben Rich said at that Caltech alumni dinner. And it's been verified by multiple people that at that Caltech alumni dinner, Ben Rich, head of the Skunk Works, said, not only do I have the technology to take ET home, I have the contract. Okay, that denotes a very sophisticated level of technology. And if you ask anybody who works in DARPA, or who has ever worked in DARPA, they will tell you that conservatively, DARPA programs are 50 years ahead of commercial programs. And a lot of times they'll tell you that it's 150 years ahead. That they are messing with stuff that will not be seen in the commercial space for another 50 or 60 years. So it is not beyond the pale that they developed a pyramidal device with a strobe, which I might add is weird, but they developed a pyramidal device that has electrogravitic capability. I would not doubt it for 1 minute.
Okay. If we take what Ben Rich said as the gospel, and that happened 29 years ago, how do we know that he was telling the truth, number one? But number two, where would they be hiding these, whatever they are?
Well, number one, why would he lie? I know somebody who was a spook. And a long time ago, I asked the person, I said, how can you tell if somebody's lying to you? Right? And their response was very interesting. They said there are two parts to that answer. One is they're all kind of ticks that you can look for, because their eyes will move and they'll fidget, or you're a human being, right? You can kind of tell. But the second part is you have to ask yourself, why would they lie? What's the point? And in this case, you could create a kind of story of, well, sure, he's trying to make Lockheed Skunk Works look like the greatest thing in the universe. Well, frankly, Lockheed Skunk Works has their hands all over almost everything that flies that's crazy and sophisticated. And the only reason he'd really have to lie is either to make the Skunk Works look even better than they currently look, or that he's trying to recruit a bunch of Caltech people. And I would argue to you, he doesn't need to recruit a bunch of Caltech people. That if they want one of these Caltech alumni to work there, they will drive down the road and knock on their door and go, you know what? I'm going to give you a whole boatload of cash to come work at the Skunk Works, and they'll probably take it. Right? So I think it really comes down to, why would he lie? As far as where they put it, that's a very good question. I don't know. I mean, there's what the plant. Oh, I forget the number now. But Palmdale, they do a lot of crazy stuff in Palmdale, in the Antelope Valley. There's Groom Lake. There's Kirkland, Edwards, right? Edwards Air Force Base. Dryden's out there. They used to call it Dryden. They've done some very sophisticated stuff out at Dryden as part of Edwards now. But, there are a number of places that you could hide this stuff. I mean, you can even hide it at Dugway, although Dugway's an Army installation. But, they could hide it overseas. They could put it in Romania, Belarus, right? You get the idea. I mean, they can pretty much hide this stuff anywhere they want. You also have to understand how this stuff works, okay? When you're talking about hiding things like this, right, is that I go back to the story that I was told many moons ago by a machinist. And he was a machinist, and he spent his entire career making a bolt with a nut. And this bolt with nut was a very weird bolt and a very weird nut. And it was made out of super strong metal. And but he didn't know what it did. The contract that they had, they were a subcontractor off of, Lockheed or Grumman or one of the, Northrop Grumman or one of these guys. And their subcontract was to produce a bolt. And then they would finish making the bolt, and then they would send it off to Northrop or whoever. And then Northrop would do something with it. But they never knew what. Until one day, sorry, this is a bit of a story. Until one day, the guy goes to a museum, and the museum had a representation of a nuclear reactor from a submarine. Okay? And when he looked at that nuclear reactor facsimile, he saw the bolt that he had been producing for the last 20 years. And what that bolt was a part of a nuclear reactor. But he never knew. He just made the bolt, and he would manually machine the bolt. And when he got done, he'd put it in a carrier, and then they would ship those off to whoever their prime contractor was. That's how they keep this stuff secret. The people that are working on it don't actually know what they're working on. They simply produce a part.
No, and I can appreciate that, and I can understand that not everybody's going to go. It's just like those who take the Janet jets into Area 51. I don't think that they really know what they're working on for the most part either, except for just a few.
The pilots have no idea. All they know is they're contracted to fly from the EG&G terminal at McCarran out to Tonopah or out to Area 51. Because remember, the Janet jets don't just fly to Area 51; they also fly to Tonopah. And in Tonopah, they could be working on satellite stuff. They could be working on communication stuff, airplane stuff. Who knows?
This also ties in, as we'll get to the next half hour, with the secret space program. Because I think that that's another one of those subjects that if it truly exists, and I know you are a firm believer that it does,
yes.
I think that that's one of the secrets that they are going to want to keep. Because if they have these TR-3B type triangles that can fly to the moon and back or fly to Mars and back, which we don't know, I mean, it makes a lot of what we're seeing right now obsolete. We got about 10 seconds.
Well, it also explains some of the things that you're seeing right now. Right?
Could be. Olav, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We're going to go to break here at the top, make that the bottom of the hour. Olav Phillips from Paranoia Magazine, Secret Space Program, TR3Bs, UFOs, Disclosure. Let's get to it when we get back from the break, right after this on Spaced Out Radio. All right, buddy, we're clear.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Good show, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad for last minute.
Yeah, well, I aim to please.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
GFG. Dave, you look like you need a belly rub. Yeah, I could take one. I could do that. Yeah. I'd do that. For sure. Coming over?
I'll be right over, Dave.
Not you. This GFG.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I want a belly rub too, damn it.
Yeah, you deserve one. You totally deserve one. For sure.
At least I'm not driving and interviewing now.
Very cool.
Yeah, I don't have to multitask.
That is...
You did have a good Mai Tai, though.
Oh, did you? How was our date? How'd the date go?
It went very well. It was just short.
Yeah? Was this the first one between you two?
Uh-huh, it was.
Oh, really?
It was, yeah.
So you had the escape route of a radio show. She had the escape route of her children, or her child.
Correct. Yes.
That's good escape route.
Exactly. Yeah. No, escape route wasn't needed.
Let's see. Nicole is asking, Olav drove 52 miles for a date. How far would Olav drive for a belly rub?
Depends on who's offering it.
The Desert Clam says 3 blocks.
Not 2,000 miles or wherever you live, Dave.
No, I'm not offering.
Although I was closer to you, I went up into Idaho.
Good potatoes up there. Solid potatoes.
Yeah, I went up to Spokane and hung a right.
Well, as soon as the border opens up, we're going to join Nate Foote and his son Hallmark Corey in Spokane for some Sasquatch hunting. If you want to join us.
Oh, yes. Can I bring my vision goggles?
Of course you can, man. I would expect none the less.
I have some nice third generation ones.
Nice.
Yeah, good stuff. They're NATO issue. Military grade.
Nice. You guys get all the nice toys down there.
Well, they're NATO. You can get them too. You just have to pay for it. They're not cheap.
Why did you start yawning, dude? Now I'm yawning all over the place. I Am Pam is in Spokane. Look at that. I Am Pam. I Am Pam, you're going to come out ghost or Sasquatch hunting with us. We're not hunting. Going looking for it. Instead of using guns, we're using goggles and cameras and binoculars and tape recorders. Big J, what's going on?
I should leave my rifle at home.
Oh, you can bring it if you want. There's other animals up there. Rono is back. Wow.
I have a nice rifle, though.
Where the hell have you been, Rono? Where have you been? G. Scott, what's happening? Thanks for joining us. We're at 171 people right now, 172. This is fantastic. Fantastic. We need one more thumb up for a 100. Who's going to be the lucky number 100 tonight? Oh, 2 clicks. We're at 101 now. We don't even know who is at the 100. Oh, the stress of it all. We got like a minute left. Hey, I want to say thank you to everybody tuning us in. If you're new here, I always like to give a reminder that we are a live radio show, not a podcast. That is why we are on a commercial break here. And if you're wondering what the hell is going on, and we're going to get going here in about 20 seconds. Great way to support this show is to do what TH, FAP, and Rye did. Donate to the Super Chat. Hit that thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. Ring that bell if you don't mind, because the more subscribers we get, the bigger and better we get, and you're a part of it as we grow. Here we go. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for tuning us in. My name is Dave Scott. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, has a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on with Olav Phillips tonight from Paranoia Magazine. Why now? Hashtag it on Twitter for why now? Why are UFOs now a priority? I still don't get it. I don't think we have a proper answer. Neither does Olav, but we're going to continue on here because I know a lot of you are tuning on in like saying, damn it, Dave, get to the secret space program already, because everyone seems to love that topic. Olav is one of the best on it. It's true, though.
Okay.
You know, it's true. People love talking about the secret space program. So
They do. They do. It's a hell of a topic.
All right. So the big question that I ask you all the time when you were on the air, all the time, where are they hiding them? Where are these TR-3Bs? Where are they parked? Where are they filling up their gas tanks? Or are they like aircraft carriers where they only have to, fill up like every 4 years or something like that? Are they nuclear powered?
Well, I don't know that we know exactly how they're powered. And the TR-3B is TR-3 is just one airframe. I mean, there are others. Some of the vehicles that have been photographed, like the Belgian UFOs and the stuff they saw back in the 90s, definitely not a TR-3B. But I don't know that we actually know how they're powered. I've seen photos and video of aircraft that I think are TR-3Bs using aerospike engines. But the actual what's powering them, it could be anything. Because remember, I mean, you're talking about a research program that's been going on for decades, and they're using power sources that we potentially have no idea. I mean, they could have cracked cold fusion and we didn't even know. Right? And I'll give you an example. You want a good example, Dave?
Yes, I want a good example.
Okay, so everybody loves Elon Musk. Well, maybe some people don't like Elon Musk. But, a lot of the things that Elon Musk is talking about, right, were originally developed by RAND in the 70s. RAND is a think tank, and they employ large numbers of very, very talented scientists to think, basically. And it's like the vacuum tube bullet train that he wanted to build between here and LA. It basically, it's a tube that's a vacuum, and there's a little pod, and it pulls it around, right? that was developed by Rand in the 70s. I mean, a lot of this stuff that they're talking about, that Elon Musk is doing, it's almost like somebody gave him the key to the Rand vault. You know, that these things were developed long ago within the military-industrial complex. They just didn't release them. You know, battery technologies, power sources, communication systems. I mean, they're, you know, the DARPA programs are way, way, way beyond where we're at. So I don't know that it's necessarily a Tier 3B. So power source, who knows what they're running those things on. And as far as where to hide them, I mean, you know, the United States is huge. They could put them again at Kirtland. They could put them at Edwards. You know, Dryden is there, right? So you got the astronauts connection. You could park them at Groom Lake. If you believe in Bob Lazar, you could park them at S4. I do believe in Bob Lazar. But I mean, there's, you know, you could park them overseas in kind of fringe countries, you know, that are non-aligned nations. You could park them in the ocean. You could keep them in orbit. I mean, there's so many places that you could put them. You could put them in the Arctic, the Antarctic. You could put them in Alaska. I mean, most of Alaska is, you know, not inhabited. You could hide them in Canada. Was a Cold Lake? It's a Cold Lake.
Cold Lake, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of places, and you could park them. Frankly, you know, I live in Northern California. You know, when I was in college, I got this weird phone call from this guy that said they were running Auroras out of Beale Air Force Base. You could park them at Beale. You could park them at Nellis. You could park them at Offutt, you know, Grand Forks. I mean, we have these huge bases. You know, you look at like Grand Forks or you look at Offutt, their B-52 bases, they're ginormous. We have a huge one out here that's Navy called Lemoore. You know, I mean, you can park them anywhere you want, really. And there's a kind of saying in the intelligence world that they do it under the flagpole, meaning that they hide things in plain sight. So, you know, there could be a whole bunch of these things parked out at Edwards and you'd never know. They fly them at night. You know, they could park them at a Nellis. You would never know. Did you know that there's a drone base on the Nellis test range that is, when you look at a photo of it, it looks like a airport in miniature. Like, you don't even realize how big it is until you see the parking lot. And you see these, like, you know, trucks or whatever parked in the parking lot. And you're like, that's tiny. But they have a full-on drone base out there that they just use for testing Predators and Reapers and, you know, the MQ series surveillance drones. You know, they just park it in the desert. Nobody notices. We don't notice because we don't look.
Okay, so where should we, as the public, be looking for these secret space program craft? Like, it's not like we're going to be able to sit outside the fences of Edwards Air Force Base and be able to see a TR-3B sitting outside of a hangar.
Sure you can. Why can't you?
Because they're probably not there?
I would argue there probably are some there. I think the thing that you really need to look for is you need to look for places with long runways, like really long runways, right? Like in Edwards or like in Area 51. These places possess just astronomically long runways. Like Beale. Beale has a very long runway because they run U-2s. So I think you need to look for stuff that has long runways. That's if they're using conventional, some sort of conventional power source. If they're using something that's vertical, who knows? I would look for places that indulge in strange projects, like a Kirtland. Kirtland is a good place, right? Because it's out in the desert. Like, it's not, you know, it's close to Albuquerque, but it's out in the desert. Like, the range around it is ginormous, you know. But I think for the most part, for the older technologies like the TR-3B, I think that you need a long runway.
Solar Warden wants to know, Olav.
Solar Warden, nice.
Yeah. Olav, have you ever seen Chuck Clark's supposed video he took from Area 51 while stealthily getting into the fields before they went hardcore on surveillance?
I don't think I've seen that one.
Me either.
I'm trying to remember. I've seen a bazillion of them. I don't think I've seen that one. Another thing that's interesting, if they're using conventional power, like a TR-3B, right? Look for tankers. Because like an SR-71, right? They used a tremendous amount of fuel to take off. And so typically with an SR-71, they would have to mid-air refuel it. And my suspicion is that with a TR-3B, that they're using a tremendous amount of fuel to take off and to climb, because in order for the aerospike engine to work, the air has to be really thin, so it has to be really, really high up. So they're going to need to be refueled before they can get up there and engage it. So I would look for patterns of air tankers.
Do you think they would need to be refueled by that?
Well, TR-3B, yeah, because I don't think it's using any sort of exotic power source. The ones that I saw are using an aerospike engine. I think use a standard turbine to get up to 40, 50,000, and then they engage the aerospike. But I think those are using conventional power, and those aren't suborbital. Those have to fly in the atmosphere. For intense like secret space program stuff, I have no idea what they're using, because they have to take, you're talking about a space plane that takes off and has to climb. I mean, I think I've seen one, but they have to climb out and go orbital, right? So, I have no idea what they're using for propellant. I think I've seen it a couple of times, but I don't know what they used as a power source.
From what you know through the secret space program and the people you have talked to, do we have any craft that can maneuver like the pilots we're seeing with these Tic Tacs, going Mach speed without breaking the sound barrier, or flying at Mach speed and then making a hard 90-degree right or left turn and keep going at the same speed at that direction?
I've actually seen it with my own eyes. But, Bob Lazar is such a controversial figure, right? But one of the things that Lazar talked about with a sports model is that it creates this like envelope, like a bubble around it, and then it can do things like that. And, if Lazar, I think Lazar is telling the truth, but if Lazar is telling the truth, he came out in 1989. This is 2021. So you're talking about something that's, 30 years? Right? So if they were able to do that 30 years ago, think of what they could do now. So I think it's totally possible if you believe what Lazar was saying. I think it's at least about the technology. I think it's totally possible that they could do that, yeah.
Now, you said you've seen something like that with your own eyes as well.
I have. I saw 14 of them dogfight for over 2 hours, and I saw them making geometric patterns like triangles, squares, making high-speed 90-degree turns. Yeah, stuff that no normal plane should be able to do. Not at that speed.
Yeah, I've only ever seen it once happen, and that was with some friends, and we were hot tubbing, and this was about 4 years ago here, and literally we saw a triangle of orbs coming towards us way up in the sky, and the front one all of a sudden did a 90-degree and took off to the southeast, while the other two kept traveling northeast and eventually stopped at the handle of the Big Dipper and just stopped, and that was it. There they stayed.
Yeah, I mean, I saw stuff like that over Mount Adams. My suspicion is based on the flight paths that I saw in southern Washington, is that if you go out to Pyramid Lake, I have to test it, but my suspicion is you'll see them over Pyramid Lake in northwestern Nevada, up above Reno. But yeah, I mean, I've seen, like I said, I saw 12 or 14 of them basically dogfighting and playing around up there for a good 2 hours before two of them came down to lower altitude, and they were running. Basically, if you're familiar with the wind sprint, you know what a wind sprint is?
Yes.
They were basically doing wind sprints between two radio towers, and we could see them fly from one radio tower masts were probably, I don't know, 20 miles apart. We could see them fly back and forth, and they would fly to the end, roll over, and then fly back, roll over, fly back, roll over, fly back, and they were triangles. I also saw a massive triangle fly over my head at low altitude. It didn't make a single sound. It was silent. Damnedest thing I've ever seen.
So
it was huge.
How are they able to do this without any sound?
The most common theory is that it's some sort of like anti-gravity motor. But, it's an anti-gravity motor, but if you believe in Lazar's statements, that, it creates this kind of bubble around it. And it uses these gravity amplifiers at the bottom to move and to project energy into a spot, and then it can warp space. It can basically like fold it, and then it goes downhill from one point to another, and then it de-energizes and space goes back to a normal kind of plane. But again, this is very exotic stuff. A lot of it, we don't even know what they're doing. We're guessing.
See, for me, if I tie this in to what we have seen, Olav, over the last number of years, where everybody seems to be talking about the science, the propulsion, the speed, the fact that they can go from underwater to 30,000 feet in less than 2 seconds.
Right.
That doesn't interest me. I mean, I'm curious. I'm very curious. But it doesn't interest me.
Right.
And let me tell you why. As an experiencer, the technology means nothing. Nothing to me. And I realize there's experiencers out there who do want to know about it. But for me, means nothing. I want to know who they are, where they're from, why they've taken me, why they have taken family members, why have they taken friends. This is what I want to know. That has nothing to do with propulsion. And I realize that we have to go down that road because that's the way they are segregating the aliens from the UFOs or UAPs.
Right. Well, I think what you're seeing is, I don't know that they're at odds with each other, right? But they're two distinctly different research pathways. One is to try to, at least for the alien part of it or the ultra-terrestrial part of it, you want to know who these people are, who these things are, what they're doing, what the point is, and I can understand as an experiencer why you would want that, because a lot of it comes down to, you say, why now? Well, the other question is, why me? What's different about me? Why are they picking me, my family members, my friends, my associates, whatever? And, why are they doing this? And that is a very potent question to ask if you're an experiencer, because it's very personal. As a not experiencer, I'm fascinated by the technology of it. The amount of power that these things have, and the way they can defy aerodynamic laws. It makes me wonder what else they're capable of. And I'm not talking about can they blow up the Earth or whatever. I'm sure if they want to blow up the Earth, they would have done it long ago. But where are they coming from? Like, is there a Dyson sphere on the other end of that trip? How long did it take them to get here? Because those have huge ramifications for us as humans. that if Lazar is telling the truth, and we do have them, this notion of how, they say it will take, 3 months to get to Mars. Yeah, if you have power like that, you can do it in like 3 minutes, 3 hours. You don't need 3 months to get there. And it suddenly opens up the entire universe to exploration and to seeing the natural wonders of the universe. And so that part of it, as a not experiencer,
right,
that part of it drives me.
All right.
Because what are they capable of doing?
C. McGee's question, what about holograms? Could we be being tricked into thinking those UFOs are just holograms?
It's possible. This comes back to Project Bluebeam. And, when you really get into the nuts and bolts of Bluebeam, there's very little evidence to go on. It really comes from one person, which is similar, frankly, to the Bell, right? The Bell, the origin story of the Bell goes back to a single individual. But it is possible. I mean, they've done some amazing things with holographics. And again, if you're DARPA and you're 100 years ahead of us, which is the pretty common number I hear. If they're 100 years ahead of us, and they're using quantum computers, who knows? I mean, sure, it's totally possible. I think the fact that we know they are using quantum computing, I think that it really opens up a lot of things for speculation, right?
Okay. Makes sense. Olav Phillips is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got about 3.5 minutes here before we go to break at the top of the hour. Olav, getting back to the whole point of whether or not we're being tricked as an experiencer, and I think I speak well for a lot of the experiencers in here that have had some sort of ET contact or abduction. At what point do we start putting the two together?
You mean the abduction and the technical aspects of it?
Exactly, because those who have had that gut-wrenching experience, whether it's positive or negative, it's still a life changer. And you've spoken to hundreds of experiencers over the years.
I have.
We want to know, who are the Mantids, who are the Greys, who are the Pleiadians, who are the Martokians, who are the Anunnaki, the Draconians, the Reptilians. Right. We want to know. Yeah. We want to know what's going on. And are they from the future? Are they from space? Are they from our own solar system that traveled to get here? These are the questions. Why am I being taken? This all leads into the why now format, man.
It does. And I think the answer to that is not something that we can derive by anything the government is going to give us. I think the answer, and this goes back to the anthropologist in me, in my personal theory of what they're doing. But I think that it's the only answer you're going to get is from them. Right? I can speculate as to what they're doing. I can give you a pretty rational hypothesis of why, but I don't know for sure. And I think the only way is that if you are an experiencer and you're having these experiences, I think you need to ask them.
Who's them?
Because I think they're the only way the people that are taking you. I mean, there are a variety of methods by which to do this, right? Depending on your own belief system, right? But, the ultra-terrestrial model, there are various occultic ways that you could potentially ask them. And again, this goes back to the secret cipher of the UFO nuts, right? That, what Greenfield did originally, that he discovered is that he put the names of these beings that were being reported in the contactee time, like Orthon and others, he put them into the cipher, and they had the same numeric values as like Jesus. And so I think, he used that as a pathway for his research. But, the answer to why they're taking you, I can give you a theory that I've developed over time. But, again, whether you do it through occultic means or you do it directly the next time you get picked up, you have to ask them because they're the only ones that can really tell you. I don't think the government knows. I think they know more than we do, but I don't know that they have a firm answer, because that would mean that they have an ongoing high-level conversation with whoever these things are, and I don't know that they have that.
All right, I'm going to get you to hold on right there, Olav, because
Sure.
we do have to get to the break at the top of the hour. Olav Phillips from Paranoia Magazine is here with us. We're going to continue on with Olav in hour number 3, talking UFOs, disclosure, secret space program. What does it all mean, and why now? On Spaced Out Radio, next. All right, buddy, I'm just going to step out. I'll be right back, okay?
Sure, no problem.
Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
All right, brother, I'm back.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Cool. No big deal.
All right. No big deal. We can figure it out, man. We can figure it out.
Make it happen, baby. Make it happen, baby.
We're holding steady at 179 right now.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we were up to like 182.
Uh-oh, I'm getting boring.
Oh, I say that and it drops to like 177.
I guess I have to talk about the blue chicken people, and then I'll bump up again.
Right? Oh, I forgot to tell you, I got contacted by Contact in the Desert.
Oh, yeah?
To do some hosting there on their virtual side of things.
Well, that's good. Right on. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's
You're
good.
going to do it, right?
Of course I am. Of course I am.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's all virtual, I guess.
It's all virtual. I'll do it straight from the studio here.
Right on. Yeah, I got my second injection, so.
Aren't you nice? Look at you all healthy.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, I finally kicked the side effects yesterday.
I haven't got one
I
yet.
didn't get super sick.
I'm not getting it unless I have to in order to go to concerts or to cross the border.
Oh, you'll probably need it to cross the border.
Well, we'll soon see. We'll soon see.
I mean, no real bad effects.
Yeah. We got 1
fun.
second here. We got 20 seconds left. Want to say a big thank you to everybody who's listening in live tonight. And thank you to Rye, Fapster, and TH for the awesome super chats. It's a great way to support what we do. Give us a thumbs up, thumbs down. And if you're new tuning on in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Here comes hour number 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for tuning us on in. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Thank you to everyone tuned in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free for you by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Typothete. Typothete is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight. Olav Phillips from Paranoia Magazine. Why now? 180 days. We're encroaching on it. It's coming very, very quick. What is going to happen? Will we get any news when it comes to UFOs on June 25th? 69 days away if you're keeping count. Olav, welcome back. Thank you so much for coming on in.
Anytime.
I want to go back to the 180 days here for a second, because I forgot to ask you a question. What do you think is going to happen?
Nothing. I think they're going to prepare a very slick document, just like they did for Roswell case closed. That they're drone programs. I think they're going to say that there's some stuff that they can't identify. They're working very hard to identify it. But I think it's going to be a whole lot of nothing, because none of those guys have the clearance to actually release this stuff. And one of the problems that you have, right, with disclosure is that if you really come clean about disclosure, then you're going to have to explain the last 60 years or more, actually more now, right? You're going to have to explain the last 70 years, 80 years even, of covering this crap up. And, it goes back to the Foo Fighters of World War II. That was almost 80 years ago. And it's like you've got 80 years of secrecy that you're going to have to explain. They're not going to explain it. The laws that were broken, the rights that were violated, and it's not just the U.S. I mean, Canada, the rest of NATO, the Russians, the Chinese, they've all done it. So I think if you're really going to disclose anything, you got a lot of explaining to do. And I just don't think they're going to do it.
What do you see happening? What do you see coming out?
Like I said, I think it's going to be a very slick document. I think they're probably going to say that a lot of the unexplained stuff is Chinese or Russian. I think they're going to say that some of the things, a lot of the things that we're seeing are advanced programs for the Air Force. Don't worry, our skies are safe kind of stuff. I think there's going to be a lot of don't worry, our skies are safe, that there's nothing up there we don't understand, and playing it down. What it might actually be is a very calculated program to really try to quash the UFO question once and for all.
If you were to look, if you were to look at June 25th, what do you see them proposing to the public in the media?
By the way, that's a 13. What are they gonna propose to the public? I think they're gonna say a lot of it is drones and stuff that it's just misidentified. And we released this pyramid photo or video, but on closer examination, we figured out it was a top secret program that you shouldn't have seen. Stuff like that. I don't think they're going to say they're aliens. That's for sure.
No, I don't think they're going to admit anything to do with aliens. Are you surprised, though? Are you surprised, though, that they're only focusing on what the Navy knows, and the Air Force has still been quite quiet about it?
Yeah, and I think that that's significant because if you look at the way the world works, right, is that the Air Force actually has domain jurisdiction over the air and space. That when they divided up the services, the Air Force is the one that's actually tasked with figuring out if a UFO came into our airspace. It's the Air Force that has to figure out what it is. It's not the Navy. So I think it's a very calculated thing that they're sticking with the Navy. That's why I think the part of this is going to be, well, those guys, because they don't like each other, those guys over in the Navy misidentified an Air Force aircraft. And I think that's going to be one of the easy explanations. But, during Grudge and Blue Book, that was all tasked to the Air Force. The Office of Special Investigations went out and interviewed people. The Office of Special Investigations in the Air Force is the one that was tasked with finding the scientists, managing the investigation of it. Because investigations into anything in the air is the Air Force, and within the Air Force, it's the AFOSI that actually does the investigation. All investigations done in the Air Force are done by the AOSI. So, I think it's very significant that the Air Force doesn't say a word.
Do you think they're just allowing the Navy to take the heat on this right now while they play dumb?
Well, I don't know that they're playing dumb. I think they're playing silent. I think that it's a great scapegoating mechanism that, the Navy's seen this, the Navy's seen that. Well, it turns out it was an Air Force program. Don't worry about it. I think the Air Force has stayed silent for a very specific reason, and I think it's because they're just going to say, those are some test planes. We're trying to keep America safe. Go America. Don't worry about that pyramid thing. That's just something we were working on. And it allows an easy way to diffuse a situation.
Okay.
No, if the Air Force comes out and says, well, I don't know what the hell that is, that's a much more significant thing, right? Because remember, the Navy, the Air Force has Russian airplanes. I mean, they have MiG-29s and Su-27s and Mi-24s, and they've got all this hardware that they've acquired through various means, and they run tests on them, and they fly other planes against it. Not the Navy. The Navy doesn't have that stuff. That's all Air Force, because the Air Force is responsible for the security of the airspace over the United States and United States affiliated places, Puerto Rico, Guam, etc. That is an Air Force task thing, not the Navy. So if the Air Force said it was unidentifiable, I think that would be far more interesting.
How come they are totally ignoring the public concerns, or even those from pilots flying for airliners, or even their own prop planes?
The Air Force or the DoD?
Everyone involved with the Pentagon or this story.
Well, I think that I think they have no choice. I mean, if they comment, right? If the Air Force, for example, we'll just use the Air Force because, again, they're responsible for the security of the skies over the United States. If the Air Force says anything, that tweet or that email or that document is going to be torn apart. Utterly torn apart. Look, we're having an entire show on a video that is 10 seconds long?
18.
It will be completely 18.
But who's counting?
But it'll be completely dismantled, right? So their only option is to stay silent, because if they say anything, right, everything that could possibly be read into that message, whether it's a sentence long or it's a 1,000-page book, it's going to be scrutinized and torn apart. So the pressure on them to deliver the right message in the right way with the right amount of information is so exponential that it's safer for them to not say anything at all. Plus, within the military in general, there's a kind of attitude about classification that if they don't, because of the way the military works, they don't want to decide what level of classification something should get. Obviously they do. There's eyes only, for official use only, classified, top secret, whatever. But they don't really want to put too much effort into it because there are too many calculations involved. So anything that's significant, they just super classify it and walk away. And whoever needs access to it, they will grant it to them. But they don't really want to play a game with what can be classified and what doesn't. Anything that's super significant, they just classify it and put it into a vault.
Okay, who calls the shots on this? If it isn't the President of the United States, because he is an elected official with a limited term, who's calling the shots?
Mm-hmm. Well, the easy answer is the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that they sit around and they make decisions. There are some directives that come from the, a political appointee, but comes from the head of the DoD. But most decisions ultimately, I would imagine, come from the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But there is a very interesting wrinkle here, right? That a lot of the stuff that you're interested in, these are special compartmentally, access programs. And these compartmental programs, right? A lot of the nuts and bolts and the dirt that you're looking for are actually outside the DoD system in general. So what's been happening in the more modern era is that, let's say a UFO crashed. Let's just go all the way. This UFO crashes, let's say it crashes in, Utah. When they go pick it up, right, what they actually do is that they farm it out to Lockheed or Northrop or Boeing or somebody, TRW or whoever. They farm out the analysis of it, and then the information is classified within, say, Lockheed, right? So it doesn't actually exist in the DoD system. The information can be accessed by appropriate DoD people in the Air Force or the Navy or the Army, Coast Guard, Marines, whoever. But the actual analysis of it takes place in a private company. And by virtue of that, they don't have to disclose what they're working on. And this, I believe this ultimately dates back to the Aurora program, that somebody somewhere screwed up. And in the Air Force budget, which is heavily scrutinized, in the Air Force budget, there was a huge line item for something called the Aurora program. And they forgot to redact the name. And once they didn't redact the name, everybody ran around and trying to figure out what it was. And, over time, they were able to figure it out. But the fix for that is to say, well, there is no Aurora program. We farm that out to Lockheed. We'll call Lockheed. Right? So, this idea that you can FOIA something and then it'll come back, the FOIA comes back empty because you're FOIAing the Air Force, and the Air Force will have documentation about it that will be completely redacted. But if you open up that documentation, it would pretty much just point back to Lockheed. Say, go talk to Lockheed. Right? So they don't have to disclose the budget. They don't have to disclose the details of the program. They don't have to disclose much of anything. It's just there's a budget line item for Lockheed for some redacted program, and that's all that exists.
There's a lot of people who also believe that there is some sort of group, a group of people who are controlling the entire ET phenomena. Have you heard about this group?
Yeah, I mean, there are always rumors of that. This is like the Majestic 12 thing. The Majestic 12 was a group of 12 guys, that controlled the entire ET experience, shall we say, and controlled the interfacing with them and the retrieval, the crash retrievals and everything else. Yeah, I mean, that's basically Majestic 12.
But does it not go deeper with that if you throw in the fact that there is belief that the government is in touch with ET species?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the basis of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? That supposedly was what happened roughly at Holloman. A ship landed at Holloman during, I think, the Eisenhower era. This vehicle landed at Holloman, and they actually interfaced with the aliens. And if you go one step further, there's Project Serpo, where supposedly, again represented in Close Encounters, Project Serpo, where a bunch of astronauts were taken aboard an alien vehicle and went back to planet Serpo and lived there for a period of time. A couple of them didn't want to come back. A couple of them died, and a couple of them did come back. So, yeah, I mean, there have been rumors of these kinds of things for a long time. And Majestic 12 as an entity is supposedly the governmental organization that was in charge of the ET program. And it started out with 12 guys that basically were confronted with Roswell and had to figure out what to do with it. And then over time it grew in scope. And they bring in people in the military and take them in and out, depending on they're read in and read out, depending on what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay. If they're read in and out, I mean, those people have to be having way higher than top secret level on this.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow the Majestic 12 storyline, right, you're given a Majestic clearance, and once it's one of those kinds of things where once you get in, you can't get out, and you're given this Majestic clearance, and then the Majestic clearance gets you access to a certain level, and then beyond that, it's basically compartmentalized program, right? The code name of it was Majestic, and anything that having to do with it was classified Majestic. And if you didn't have a Majestic classification, you couldn't access the information.
Okay, so if you are in the most powerful country in the world, with the most powerful military in the world, why are we keeping secrets from those who are elected officials?
Because they're transient. This is the deep state argument. You know, in any bureaucratic system, right, of which we are, Canada is, pretty much the entire world is bureaucratic in nature, right? In any kind of a bureaucratic system, you naturally evolve power structures, and those power structures have to survive the transient nature of elected officials. So you can't start over. And you know, there's a lot of badness about this notion of the deep state, you know, that has been brought on in recent years. But in reality, if you think about it, you have to have a government that operates, even though we transition between presidents or prime ministers or whatever. You know, that you can't shut down the entire government because you have a change in president, or you can't shut down the entire DOD because the Secretary of Defense changes. That's at a minimum, it's probably going to change every 4 to 8 years, and at a maximum, it could be 100 times in 4 years, or once a month, or once a week. The machinery needs to keep going, and so in that kind of a system, you evolve a kind of power structure that operates without. I mean, they're technically under the Congress and the House, the House and the Senate, and under the president, but in reality, they function, autonomously because they have to keep working.
Would those in the Joint Chiefs of Staff know?
I would imagine they do. I mean, they know at least something about it. I don't know that they know everything about it, but I would imagine that there's some. This is actually the argument that I've always had about Paul Hellyer. Speaking of Canadians, that you have a guy who is the Minister of Defense who knows absolutely nothing about UFOs. And, supposedly Canada has retrieved them and they've experimented on them and done other things with us. Because remember NORAD, where all this stuff is detected, when these DSP satellites are tripped, it actually alerts NORAD, right? Well, NORAD is a joint, it's the North American Air Defense Command. And so it's a joint operation. In fact, they trade off, but the head of NORAD is an American and the vice commander is Canadian. And sometimes it switches around. So, the idea that somebody like Paul Hellyer had no idea that there were UFOs at all, I find that unlikely. I'm sure they have some level of knowledge. But the last guy that really wanted to expose it was Forrestal, and Forrestal fell out of a window. So, just because doesn't mean you can say anything. But I find, I would give Paul Hellyer much more credibility if he said, look, there are certain things I can't discuss. But he just says, I don't know anything at all. Well, that just doesn't sound right. Well, a professional would just be silent.
I can tell you this, that I once got an email from Paul Hellyer who basically said in the email that he has no secrets, or let me read this so that way I get it right. After the email that he sent me, he goes, P.S. I don't have secrets, at least none that I talk about. To me, okay, right. And there's a lot of people, whether it's Grant Cameron or others, who totally feel that Paul Hellyer really, really did not fake his story or hasn't hidden anything. I call a little bit of bollocks on that, considering that while he was in power,
he just told you he did.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
Told you he did.
Exactly. But before that,
there.
But before that, this is a gentleman who was in power when Stefan Mikulik and the Falcon Lake incident happened. He was the Minister of Defense. This is a gentleman who had his government ousted 3 weeks before Shag Harbor happened. So the fact is, he would have been known on that. He's still on Canada's Privy Council. This man is still in the know, even though he's 95, 96 years old. He's still in the know. So for him to say that he didn't know anything while he was in office, sitting as the Minister of Defense, I don't buy it.
It's ludicrous.
It really is. Olav, hold on right there. You're gonna stick around, right?
Of course.
All right.
Can't give up now.
Can't give up now. It's a little bit of a different show. We had Dave's rant at the beginning, so we're going to continue with Olav Phillips when we come back on the break on the other side. Why now? Let's find out with Spaced Out Radio. Damn it, my eye is itchy.
Oh, Carl. Go fix it.
Carl's way out there, man.
You know, you should ask him.
No, I know when he's around.
Have you ever...
I've asked for him.
Have you ever just asked him? No, have you ever just asked him why?
Never got to talk to him except that one day.
Ask him why. Well, it was telepathic, right?
No, that time. Excuse me. That time I heard.
Why don't you just ask Carl the next time he's around? Say, hey, Carl, why are you doing this? I want to know. I mean, he may answer your question. He would know. I mean, I'm going to guess, Dave, but if you ask Carl, you might actually get an answer.
Oh, you're speaking weird right now. You're speaking woo. You're speaking woo.
Well, but think about it. Think about it for a minute, right? He comes around. You know when he's there.
He's only been around twice. He hasn't been around since 2018.
Why don't you call him?
I've tried, dude.
When I was on Shasta, one of the damnedest things ever, me and my friend, my son had gone to bed. He was done with it. But me and my friend, we did the CE5.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got done, a ball of light flew over our heads just above treetop level.
Nice.
And then flew out and then just vanished. If we could do that, just messing around, if you really give it some thought, maybe try the Gansfeld or some other way, I bet you he'll answer.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not close to the point. I just know I just know when I could feel him.
I've got an experiment for you to do. Do you have somebody who lives close by that could be in the studio with you?
Yeah.
Why don't you do the Gansfeld live in the air?
Be tough.
The guys that are on YouTube that are listening to our conversation right now, they can see you, right?
Yes.
Why don't you try it? Why would it be tough?
Because I'm already doing so many different things at once during the show, dude.
So you've got 30 minutes worth of time, which is more than enough. It's more than enough to do the induction. Give it a shot.
Always putting pressure on me. Always.
I think I don't know. I would check the chat room right now.
Yeah, they're all saying do it. They're all saying do it. Maybe I will.
Because the key is that you need somebody there to run interference. Because listening to you do the Gansfeld may or may not be interesting. It'll only be interesting if you start saying what you're seeing, right? But
I don't know if I would do that during the radio show, but I may do it during a special Saturday night or something.
Yeah, do it on a special Saturday night. Have everybody tune in and watch it. But if you do the Gansfeld, you should have somebody monitor you. But I know other people, when they've done it, they've had tremendous experiences. I mean, I led 7 people through it at once. And, they all wanted to see their spirit animal, and they did.
Oh, well,
so I think
something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you devoted an hour or so to it and you actually did it and people could watch, I think that'd be very interesting for people. And I think that if you went into it thinking, Carl, I want to talk to you, Carl, I think Carl would show up. I really do.
Scare the piss out of me. That's what it would do.
No, I don't think it would. When you're in the in-between, it's not scary. I mean, I saw a timber wolf emerge from the darkness. And that's something that should scare the hell out of you. It didn't scare me one bit. I think that you would find that it's a very serene, calming place, and I think he would show up. Somebody would show up.
Well, let me think about it. We only got like 20 seconds.
Okay. By the way, the girl that I went on the date with, she has the connection in the number 93.
Of course she does. Hey, Kevin, how are you? All right, here we go, guys. 5 seconds. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We want to say hello to everyone tuned on in wherever you may be on this beautiful planet, and remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. We're going to continue on here with our good friend Olav Phillips. Why now? Why UFOs now? Why has the government of the United States taken UFOs to become a hot-button topic? Is it a political stance? Olav Phillips from Paranoia Magazine is here. Olav, let's get you back in here.
Hey, Dave, before we do that, I just had a brain fart.
All right.
And I think you asked 2 questions, why now and why the abductions, right?
Sure.
For experiencers, why me or why it or why, right? And I was, we're having a conversation off the show, but it just dawned on me, I think something that might be very interesting to do to answer both questions simultaneously would be to perform an experiment. Back in the day, the Venerable Art Bell used to perform these intention experiments. And one of the things that you learn very quickly, I was telling you about a CE5 that I did with a friend of mine that worked. I mean, it straight up worked. So there's no ambiguity about it. But a lot of these things come down to intent and will, that you have to will it to happen and will your intent into being, right? Now, granted, this is more metaphysical. But what if, right, you took all your listeners, because you got a ton of them, what if you took all your listeners and at a specific point in time, you conducted one of those experiments and you had them ask the question of, why now? Or why take people, right? And then have like a panel of all your favorite, UFO researchers on, and then have people call in and tell you what they encountered. I know it sounds very woo-ish, but this is a very valid way, at least from the ultra-terrestrial point of view, this is a very valid way to get an answer for both the questions that you're asking. So I wanted to put that out there. I think that it would be a very powerful experiment.
I think there's a very large drawn intention. I really do.
Mm-hmm. I do too. And I think that part of it is the why now, because maybe things are escalating, right? That more things are being seen. I think there's also there's something the government is doing that we're not aware of. There's something that's happening, or they're trying to achieve something, right? And that's the why now part of it from a governmental point of view. But it also could be a reaction to an acceleration in how much these vehicles are being seen and how many people are becoming experiencers. Because it seems like more and more people are coming out and saying, well, I've had an experience, a direct experience. So, yeah, the intention is part of it.
Olav, I want to ask you on the political side of things here.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at disclosure and we look at everything that we have discussed tonight, as well as on other shows, so on and so forth, it always comes down to the United States. What does the United States have to say about this? What is the United States not telling us about this? It always comes down to this. And yet there are a couple hundred other countries out there who could do this. But if you pick the big ones, Russia, China, Great Britain, one of those three, Japan, one of those four, could do it easily. Even Canada could do it easily and break this story wide open. Yet we're all focused on what the United States knows. Is it because they're pulling the strings on this, or because everybody always looks to the U.S. because you're the big dogs on campus? What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a complicated question. I mean, we've seen it before. The French released a report, right? Years ago, the French actually released a report on this stuff. I mean, the Mexicans have released gun camera footage. The several other countries in South America have released gun camera footage. But on a mass scale, obviously, we have no control over what the Chinese and the Russians do. I think there is some collusion there between us and the Chinese and the Russians, at least in the secret space program end of it. You know, I've always believed that the Cold War was a bit of a fabrication, and that there's a lot more work that's being done under the covers, so to speak, between us and the Chinese and the Russians. But I think at the end of the day, if you take all that out of the equation and you just do it on raw politics, I think that the Canadians and the English and the French and the Germans and the Italians and the Spaniards and everybody else who's in NATO now, because NATO is ever expanding, right? I think that we're pulling the strings. I think that we have cornered the market on it, and I think that we have asserted control over it. And I think that we subsidize NATO so much that I think they're scared. I mean, just from a raw political point of view, I would think that they would be at some level scared of pissing us off. I mean, you saw during the Trump era, Trump wasn't a big fan of NATO. And so he started pulling the money out of NATO and other things. And the rest of NATO kind of panicked because we put a tremendous amount of military backing into NATO. And I think if they did things without our okay, so to speak, it's not the way you want things to be, but I think it's the way it is. I think that they're afraid of some level of reprisal from us. But, you hear stories, like there's a story in the Zone of Silence in Mexico that a UFO crashed, and it actually killed a bunch of Mexican soldiers that had gone out to investigate it. And the American military crossed the border into Mexico and picked the thing up and took it back into Texas. So, or Texas or Arizona. So, that was a situation where, the vehicle had crashed in a foreign country and we went and grabbed it anyway. And there's a long history with Operation Moondust retrieval teams where they had gone into other countries including Canada, to fetch foreign technology. There was a Russian satellite that had crashed in Canada, and a Moondust team went in and picked it up and brought it back. I don't know that they cleared that with the Canadian government. They just kind of did it. So I think that we have the most stuff. We probably have the most knowledge, and I think they're probably afraid of irritating us by doing their own thing.
Do we need the President of the United States to make that comment that this world is being visited?
If you want it to be taken seriously, at least in the Western world, not including the East and Russia, because Russia spans, the East and the West, so Russia is like its own thing. But if you want the kind of aligned nations of NATO to take it seriously, yeah, I think you do. I think you need the President of the United States to say, and trust me, I'm not a globalist. I think Canada is a beautiful country. I love Canada, but
I'm not getting that from you at all. How would
no? But I think you do. I think you would need the President of the United States, the quote unquote most powerful country in the entire world, to say, no, it's real. The UFOs are aliens, and I think then it would be taken seriously.
Okay, let me ask you this: if the president is already debriefed on this subject, which
right.
seems to be the way it goes, how would
I wouldn't assume that, but go ahead.
Okay, how does this subject come out? How would he be debriefed on the information that's necessary?
Well, I don't know that all presidents are. I think some are. I think Eisenhower was, obviously. I think Nixon was. I think Reagan was. I don't know. I don't think Carter was. I think Clinton maybe a little bit. I think there's a kind of thing that happens in the United States when a president gets elected, that there's a kind of first day they sit down and they kind of run him through, this is how it really works. And I think it's probably in there, if it's going to be in there. There's a kind of like initiation where they put a bunch of stuff in front of them and go, okay, this is where we're really at with X, Y, and Z. And I think that's probably when they tell them.
Okay. So would there be a certain person who does that? Would it be from the Central Intelligence Agency? Would it be the Joint Chiefs of Staff? Would it be from the intelligence community, the DIA? Who would break that down for him?
I think that it would be a briefing by, if it were to occur, I think it would be a briefing by multiple people, because each one has a domain of information and they don't necessarily share. So I think you'd get the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I think you get somebody from inside the CIA, the NRO, the NSA, National Geospatial Agency, maybe even the FBI. But I think that it would be a briefing by multiple people. I don't think just the head of national intelligence would roll in and go, well, UFOs are real. We're testing stuff out at Area 51. I think that it would be, each group would have a representative and run him or her through whatever is known at that time. Right. So you'd have the Joint Chiefs would probably, the head of the Joint Chiefs would probably brief him on the military end of it. CIA would do CIA, FBI would do FBI, etc. I think that's probably how it would work.
Do you think there's fear and hesitation on the part of any president or those who would brief the president on this about going public?
Oh, absolutely. I think there absolutely is just the absolute fear of God of releasing it. Because, the idea that the aliens are out there and that UFOs are real and that they're regularly transiting our airspace, we really can't do much about it. I think that's a horrifying prospect to admit to. Because look, put yourself make yourself the Prime Minister of Canada for just a moment, right, Dave? You're the Prime Minister of Canada. You're going to go on the air and you're going to tell every Canadian that these vehicles from another planet are going in and out of our airspace, and we can't do anything about it. We don't know very much about them. They just show up. They take people. They do stuff, right? I mean, obviously it's worse here because there's the stories of them disarming like missile silos and putting them into launch sequence and, disabling subs and, abducting people and whatever, but just put it from the point of view of Canada. You're the Prime Minister. You're going to go on the CBC and tell everybody, well, yeah, there are these, things from another planet. We kind of know a little bit about them, but we can't really do much about it. But don't worry, you're safe. I think you get a recall vote about 10 minutes later, So I think that politically it's a suicide pill.
You think so?
I do, and because I don't think we have a good understanding. I mean, the last time we tested this was in the 50s with Brookings. Those were eminent sociologists and anthropologists. I mean, Margaret Mead, who's an eminent anthropologist, was part of that. It was just a who's who of psychologists, psychiatrists, sociologists, anthropologists, political scientists, religious people. I mean, and the report came back, and it was like it would have a massive impact on religion and our culture and our social and societal structures. I don't think they know what it would do. Because look, the Catholic Church, the Pope has already said, well, there are, the aliens came from God too, so they're cool, right? But how do other religions handle that? Right? Maybe the Catholics are okay, but the Anglicans aren't, or maybe the Anglicans are okay, but Judaism isn't, or Judaism is okay, but the Muslim faith is not, or the Muslims are okay, but the Hindus are not. I mean, you've got all these like major religions. How does each one handle the fact that the creation myths that are perpetuated by the religion in question, well, how do you account for aliens with your creation myth? Right. So there's a huge kind of problem there that I don't know that we have an answer to. I don't think we have a good handle on it.
What about the media? How does the media, the mainstream media, not the fringe media like what we do here, but the mainstream media, how do they tackle this going forward?
I think a lot of it is going to have to do what happens in 69 days, right? There's been more of an openness to it because they know the mainstream media in every country, whether it's the BBC or the CBC or, Deutsche Welle or, whatever, NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, whoever, they kind of have they know that the people that live in these respective countries are fascinated by this topic, there's been a more openness about it, right? Over the last, say, 20 years, it's not so wooey anymore that a lot of people do believe in it. But I think a lot of how they handle it in the mainstream is going to come down to what that report says. Because remember, after Roswell Case Closed came out, that shut everything down with the mainstream commercial media for a long time, right?
Oh, that
because
it did.
Well, the Air Force says that it's BS and that they were little parachute dummies, and so they got the explanation they needed, and then they divorced themselves from the topic for a long time. And really, honestly, they divorced themselves from the topic until the O'Hare thing, because the O'Hare thing was undeniable. And when we got to the O'Hare thing, the sighting at O'Hare, then it's because you got all these pilots, and people and ground crews all saw this thing. Then it started to come back in. But I think maybe this thing in 69 days is going to shut it down again, potentially.
Do you think after...
I think at the year...
Sorry, we only got about 3 minutes left. Do you think after the 69 days is up, or the 180 days is up, Do you think
Right.
that if they give us nothing, this topic goes back under the ugly carpet where it's been for all those years, or is it out for good now?
I think it's out for good now. I don't know that the mainstream media will touch it for a while, but I think it's out. It's funny. I know I only have like a minute and a half or something, but it's funny. You know, I used to go to a party, and you know, people would be like, "Oh, you like UFOs and Bigfoot? Ugh, you're weird. You're wooey." Right now, if I go to a party, it's like, "Oh, you're the UFO guy." You know, when I was a kid, I saw a light, you know, in the sky and whatever. You know, I went and visited my uncle, and you know, he's like, "Oh, you like UFOs, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, let me tell you the story about what happened on the lake over there." You know, and it's much more open now, so I don't think they can push it under the rug, but I don't think they'll touch it. The mainstream media won't put any effort into it.
You think they'll drop the topic after June 25th?
Potentially, for a while, but you know, inevitably it'll come back because, frankly, everybody's fascinated by it. I don't know a single person that isn't interested in it, whether they don't believe it or they do believe it. Everybody wants to talk about it. Everybody's got a theory. They all want to discuss it. So I think the cat's out of the bag.
It's going to be interesting to see how the media reacts, because we're going to start seeing a lot of reporters all of a sudden trying to be professional about this topic and not have a bloody clue on what they're actually writing. And they're not going to know.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
Oh, I would. I'll put that on the line.
Oh no, I think a lot of the reporters might actually be interested. I think they might know more than you think.
We'll beg to differ.
But they don't.
We'll beg to differ on that.
Okay. Sure.
At least up here. I know there's a few.
I'll bet you $1. $1 US.
All right. Well, that's like $180 my Canadian, dude. I can't do that.
I know.
Can't do that. You win either way. Either way, you win. My friend, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio. It's always a pleasure, and I know we'll probably talk to you before the 180 days is up, as well as after. Let everybody know where they can find Paranoia Magazine.
Well, you can find it on Facebook, Paranoia Magazine. Find me, Olav Phillips. I'm on Facebook. Send me a message. I'm on Instagram, Paranoia Mags, paranoiamagazine.com. I don't know. I'm easy to find.
You are easy to find. Olav Phillips, I always appreciate you coming on Spaced Out Radio. You're one of our favorites around here, my friend, and we love having you here. So you just keep up the great work on what you're doing, and you know, keep looking for them aliens. Keep looking for them, because eventually you will find them. That I do know. Big thank you to Olav Phillips tonight on Spaced Out Radio as we close this show out. A little bit different, but I thought this one worked, and I hope you enjoyed. We've got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in, at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everybody in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, the Space Travelers Club, and all the snarkers and snarkettes hanging out on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, yep, we've got room for them too. Good night.